Hey everybody, welcome back to the I Play 2 podcast. I'm your host, Rob Adler. This week, Duke tennis player Connor Krug joins the show. In 2017, he teamed up with his twin brother, Jake, to win the USTA Gold Ball Doubles Championship. In his first 3 years playing collegiately at Duke, Connor has won a combined 55 singles matches, including a win as a sophomore over Carl Poling to clinch the win over hated rival North Carolina. Off the court, Connor is an ace as well, having made the All-ACC academic team each of the last 3 years. His grandfather, Dick Vitale, is one of the most recognizable voices in college basketball, coining phrases like awesome with a capital A and also the iconic diaper dandy to describe a star freshman player. Connor, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. How you doing today?
Doing well. Just got back to Duke. New team this year. We have a lot of new guys, but good squad. Level's been very high. Have TJ Pure, our new assistant coach. He was here previously 2 years ago, but he's a big addition as well. So just happy to be back on campus and getting in some work with the guys.
What's it like this year going into more of a veteran leadership role in addition to playing all kinds of key matches?
I think in college tennis, men's tennis specifically, the team size isn't so big. So really, since I stepped on campus as a freshman, we only have anywhere from usually 10 to 14 guys. So since I stepped on campus first day as a freshman, you really have a big voice and you have an ability to lead right from the get-go. So I think that's definitely something that I've been doing over the last 3 years, regardless of whether I was a freshman, sophomore, junior. And now going into my senior year, yeah, sure. That's going to be a big point of emphasis, especially with this squad. We have a lot of new guys, a lot of transfers that haven't been in this program. And me being somebody who's been through it the last 3 years, certainly I'm going to lead this squad and show them how we do things at Duke and how we represent Duke the right way.
For people who've never been, what's Durham like as a city and to live in?
I've grown to love Durham a lot. I spend a lot of time eating at all the restaurants downtown. I think Durham is pretty well known as the foodie town. There's a lot of trendy restaurants, not many chains at all, actually, which is really great. It's a lot of just hole in the wall type places, any cuisine you can imagine. So one of my favorite things to do here is going to eat out with friends and try all the new restaurants. There's always new ones popping up. The menus are constantly changing. So it's a fun thing to do. And a lot of Duke students do it as well. When I talk to a lot of people who've gone to Duke in various eras, they said kind of back in the day, maybe 10 plus years ago, the Duke people didn't really venture out. The whole Triangle area has developed so much over the last decade. And now the students are everywhere downtown. All the restaurants are packed with Duke people. So that's great to see as well.
I could sit here and talk food all day. What's your favorite type of cuisine if you get to choose where you're going?
My favorite restaurant, I would say, is M Sushi. That's sushi place, obviously. It's like underground, really cool vibe. But I wouldn't say I like sushi over a great Italian place or a great steakhouse or a great Mexican food. It really just depends on what I'm feeling. I appreciate and enjoy eating all the cuisines.
When anyone goes to Durham, what's the Italian restaurant that one needs to go to?
Cucciolo's, definitely. And I believe that's on John Shire's top favorite restaurants as well. I was listening to him do a podcast the other day, and he had that one listed as well. It's amazing. The rigatoni vodka is incredible.
Rigatoni vodka, sign me up. I need to get to Durham.
Yeah, I might go tonight. Who knows?
Oh, sure. Just taunt me right there. I'm going to throw a point penalty at you.
Wouldn't be the first.
So you've actually gotten a point penalty before?
I think every tennis player has. Back in junior tennis, the USTA referees are pretty strict. Anytime if you bounce the racket or do anything like that, you're at risk of them giving you a point penalty.
As a fan, I imagine you watch some tennis every now and again, and with the US Open upon us, do you ever get at least a little bit irked that maybe some players don't get the penalty while other players do?
It's just how the sport works. Some guys get preferential treatment, obviously. The rule was you have 25 seconds in between the points before you have to go play the next one, and you play at the server's pace. So if the server steps up to the line after 15 seconds, according to the rules, the returner should be ready as well. But they started implementing an actual clock for the 25 seconds. Previously, it was more of a soft rule, but now there's actually a serve clock. So you'll see if you watch after the point ends, it's 25 seconds counting down. But obviously, some players get more leniency with that clock. Like Nadal takes a little bit longer and he gets away with it. Other guys, it's tough. It gets to zero, violation, point penalty right away. But that's just how it works. I mean, maybe deservingly so. Nadal should get a little more leniency. I mean, he's won how many Grand Slams? But I think that's in every sport, right? In baseball, the veteran guys might get a better strike zone. Rookie guys might have it a little tougher. But I think that's how it is in every single sport. And I mean, you got to play by the rules, but it's just kind of how it is.
When you're playing against somebody maybe that you notice that likes to slow the pace, obviously there's a clock, but do you ever try to maybe pick up the pace when you're serving?
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a tactic. And when things are going well, especially as a server, you kind of want to keep it speeding up. And that's when the returner tries to go to the towel, break up the rhythm. But you try to step up to the line. You don't want to rush yourself too much where it affects you playing the next point, but you want to continue that momentum and you want to step up to the line relatively quickly. Federer is the greatest of all time at that. Sometimes this guy's holding serve in less than a minute. And you're just like, wow, I already just lost that game and just blinked.
You mentioned Federer and Nadal. Who were the idols that you grew up watching that you really enjoyed?
Oh, Federer for sure. I used to be really, really big into baseball. I played competitively travel ball on a very high level team. Most of my teammates are playing Division I or in the minor leagues. But growing up, my grandfather, a lot of people don't know this, but his favorite sport actually, I would say, is baseball. So throughout my entire life growing up, I was able to travel and go see many games and be in the locker rooms and on the field before these games. So I loved baseball. And I played tennis as well, but more casually, an hour lesson here or there. And then we went to, I forget the year, but it was Miami Open. It was Federer versus an 18-year-old Ryan Harrison. And it was the first real professional tennis match I ever saw. And after watching Federer play, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to play tennis. So kind of cool. I think he's had that impact on so many people. That's why the whole tennis community was so sad to see him retire. But Federer definitely nurtured my love for tennis. I mean, that was my biggest idol growing up. I remember I was lucky enough to actually meet him at Wimbledon in 2012. Federer was practicing. It was his day off between his quarterfinal and his semifinal match. At the time, he was working with Paul Annacone, who had worked briefly with my mom and my aunt. So my grandfather had a pretty good relationship with him. So we were able to go on the court while he was practicing and meet him, say hi, exchange a few words. And I remember how nervous I was to meet Federer. And I've had the privilege to meet some amazing people across all sports, from Kobe Bryant, Derek Jeter, Tom Brady, you name it. But I was more nervous and in awe of Roger Federer than anyone else by far.
What was it like just to be around him with that awe, with that aura in his prime at his best event in Wimbledon?
It was pretty insane. I always say this. When I got to see him and I was that close and I shook his hand, he almost didn't seem like a real person. It's hard to kind of understand what that means, but I'm sure everybody has that person where when you see them actually in the flesh and when you're that close, it's like, whoa. It was almost like you couldn't get to him. And it was so amazing that I was able to meet him. Like I remember just crowds when he practices anywhere, every single fan at the facility is around the court watching. So it's extending thousands deep. He had like 10 bodyguards there around him. And we got to just walk on the court and meet him. And it was like, wow, this is just insane. I don't think there's never been like a baseball player, a basketball player, a football player that I've seen that amount of coverage while they were practicing. And I guess it's also heightened because it's a single person, right? I mean, at these other events, you have the other teammates and there's more going on. But when it was that amount of people just focusing on one person, it was like, wow, this is insane.
As a fan and also as a player, when you would watch Federer, what did you admire most about his game on the court?
Just how easy he makes the game look. Anyone who plays knows how incredibly difficult everything about the sport is, how physical it is, how tough it is to play some of these shots. And the other two, Novak and Nadal, also unbelievable. But you can kind of see them suffering on the court. You can see Nadal and Djokovic fighting. Federer, obviously incredible fighter as well, but you can see them suffering, exerting the physical energy. Federer is just like he's floating out there like a ballerina, and his strokes are just so fluid and so pretty, and so much natural ability that he has that you're just in awe when you're watching. And he hits some shots that are just not even hittable. You just ponder how this guy can come up with these shots. It's so unique. I think Federer played in an era where he started out where the serve and volley was big. The courts were really, really fast. So he was a serve and volleyer in his young career. Then he had to adapt to the courts becoming slower, guys playing better from the back. He had to learn how to be a baseliner, an aggressive baseliner. And then he's got incredible defense skills as well. So Federer, to me, I say he's the greatest of all time. I know the stats indicate otherwise, but I also find it incredibly impressive how he's had to master every single facet of the game. He can serve and volley. He can play serve +1 patterns. He can go back and extend the rallies 20 plus shots. It's so amazing how he's able to really develop every single possible skill in the sport.
You're speaking my language because Federer is my favorite player on the men's side as well. Just watching the way he would do point construction and game construction, it always felt to me that he was thinking on a higher level than anyone else.
A lot of that is also due to the fact that he's just able to do so many things. Most guys can't say, okay, I'm going to play serve and volley here. He's got so many tools in the toolbox for him to use that he's able to employ whatever strategy he wants. And that's why he's also said early on in his career, it took him a while to rein in his talent because he had so many tools. He didn't know what shot to play at the right time because he had so many options.
If you watch Holger Rune now, there's a lot of Federer and Rune when Federer was younger. Federer was actually kind of a hothead, would lose his temper. A lot of people don't remember that. But Rune's the same way, and there are a lot of similarities. If you watch the game, Rune's not quite as good of a serve and volleyer yet, but there are a lot of similar traits, especially on the forehand side, between those two guys at the same age.
I disagree a little bit because Holger doesn't have nearly the amount of variety Federer had. I think the closest similarity to Roger, and a lot of people have said this as well, is Alcaraz. Both guys play such incredible variety on their forehand with the shapes and the spins and how hard they can hit it. And Alcaraz is more of a complete player. He's coming in, moving forward, playing with the kick serve. I think Rune is like an Andy Murray and a Djokovic in Rune. When Rune was at his best, especially last year when he was 3 in the world, winning Masters 1000s, beating Djokovic, it was almost like this guy was beating Djokovic at his own game, playing the physical, quotations, boring style of tennis, just big targets, high percentage tennis, ground strokes, being so physical with the movement. And that's kind of what I saw with Rune, but I understand what you're saying.
To me, I think Rune has the most talent of anybody of the younger guys on the circuit. I just don't think mentally he's where he needs to be. He's not where Alcaraz is. He's not where Sinner is. He's not even where somebody like Medvedev, who's a little bit older, but he's not at that level mentally. And I think in order for him to win a slam, he has to get there.
Look, he's definitely incredibly talented. He's what, like 10 in the world or something. But I think there's a pretty significant gap between Alcaraz, Sinner, Djokovic still, Zverev as well. Medvedev's been struggling in his terms recently, but just the consistency of those guys every single week, they're semifinals, finals winning. And then obviously, I always say the person who's got a grand slam in the bag, I always favor when they're playing somebody who doesn't have it. Anyone will tell you the first one's the hardest to get. And it's a pretty significant difference. Alcaraz has 4 now. Holger still has 0. Who knows? Federer didn't win his first till 23, but I don't know what we're going to see with Alcaraz at the end of his career. I mean, he's got 4 and he's only 20 years old. The Grand Slams start and you're kind of like, oh, wow, okay, he's going to be in the final and let's see what happens.
It might be a little bit different in this era on the pro side because the money is better than, let's say, even when Federer started. I mean, even compared to 15 years ago when Federer and Nadal were in their prime. So Alcaraz might decide at 27, I'm going to walk away. I don't need to do this anymore. I'm going to go live life.
The prize money's better, but it's always been that way with the sponsorships, though. I mean, he signed, a $200 million deal with Nike for 10 years, so he could walk away whenever he wants. That's always been the case. I mean, I'm sure Federer had crazy lucrative deals when he was 25, 26 as well. What makes those guys so great, though, is that's not how they think. That's what's so impressive about those guys. Like, you're right. They could walk away, live an incredible life, but they have such a passion and a desire to get better every single day. And that's how you kind of marvel how they've been able to do that for 20 years. It's incredible. It takes a very, very special person. I mean, Serena's done the same, Steffi Graf, Sampras, some other greats, but I think they're wired a little bit differently to have this level of success. And I definitely don't see Alcaraz taking that route. If he kind of had that type of mentality, I don't believe he would be where he is today.
You mentioned the passion and the dedication. For you, how do you keep growing that passion and dedication for you to get better match to match?
I just think it's love for the sport, and it's not necessarily something I've had to grow. I've always had it since I first picked up a racket and since I first started competing. It's always been there. And I think most guys, sure, there are times where it gets tough and you're like, things aren't going well, or it's a grind. It's not easy having to pick yourself up in certain tough situations, but overall, the love for the game and the passion just to play is always there. And that's something that does get you through the tough moments and the tough stretches where it might not be a bunch of winning. And a lot of pros experience that, especially in their career starting off. You lose more than you ever have in your life, probably. But most players who still play the sport 22, 23, who have played 10 plus years, they have that passion and love for the game, and that's why they're still playing. But I wouldn't say at this stage it's something that has to be developed. It's just there. There's just a desire to get better and a passion to play, and that's something that has always been there for me.
How competitive are you and your brother, not just necessarily on the court, but off the court?
We'll play ping pong and it gets like our life depends on it, or an Xbox game and we're playing like it's the Wimbledon final. But that's just really, really fun. We are just always competing from the get-go, from day one. I saw a funny photo yesterday, actually. I came across, it popped up on my memories from 10 plus years ago. I was like 11 years old. And our coach at the time, what he used to do after every single practice, he'd have us play a 10-point tiebreaker and he'd called it the penny open. At the time, you want that penny. It's like $1 million. You'll do anything for that penny. And the tiebreakers were crazy. People would leave in tears. And one day he brought this Federer poster from the Miami Open. And my brother wasn't even a big Federer fan. He was a Nadal guy, and I was. And I wanted this poster in the worst way. And I ended up losing the tiebreaker. I'm sure it was like 12-10 or something crazy. And there's a picture of the coach in the middle, my brother holding the poster up with a big smile, and then me on the other side in tears, just staring at the camera. And it was hilarious to see.
That's a great story. I bet mom had to separate you guys possibly when you got home that night.
I don't remember the details, but I was pretty bummed out for a while. I think he put that poster up, and we had our own room, but there was no door in between. So the beds were facing each other. And I think he put that poster up right next to his bed. So I saw it every single night.
If this were the NFL, you could throw a flag for taunting.
Yeah, part of sports, though. You give it and you got to be able to take it. I would have done the same thing.
When it comes to, I guess, kind of trash talking, is that something you ever engage in? Because in the tennis world, there are a few players who like to do that.
Tennis, I would say that's pretty non-existent. Some guys might engage the opponent a little bit more because it could help them, like it could fire them up, make them more competitive. But since you're playing against another guy, I don't know. It's a gentleman's sport. You have so much respect for your opponents. When you're playing a match and you go 7-5 in the third, 3 hours, there's just so much respect between the opponents and the effort the other guy's giving. And it's almost like you're kind of going through this together, this emotional roller coaster, this physical battle. And my experience playing the sport compared to when I played baseball per se, there's a lot greater mutual respect for the opponent afterwards and what you guys are both going through together.
You've mentioned a couple of times that you've played baseball. What was the reason that you decided to give that up in favor of tennis?
To be honest, it was really when I saw Roger play for the first time. I was like, wow, this guy's the coolest guy I've ever seen. I want to start playing. And I started training more hours and I started improving very, very fast. And then you play some tournaments, you win some tournaments, advance to a higher level. And I was doing that at a pretty quick rate. And then it becomes really, really fun.
That's pretty neat, just having that defining moment.
First time I saw him play in person, wow. I was around baseball so much and be playing catch with CC Sabathia on the field at Yankee Stadium before the game and all these things. I didn't have the same exposure to tennis. And once I did, I just really fell in love with the sport. Also, loves competing more than anything, more than just what any sport entails. And tennis is at the peak of competing, right? It's one versus one. You're out there alone. I think tennis is a sport where it allows your competitive nature to shine the brightest. And that's true for any individual sport, but tennis also, there's a physical component. It's a little bit different than golf per se. But I also had an amazing coach when I decided I was going to start playing for real and train serious and playing 3-4 hours a day. I worked with Lance Luciani and Heath Turpin. They had an academy in Sarasota, Florida. At the time, they were working with Adam Neff, who was a great player, amazing junior career. He's just starting out professionally. So we got in contact with them. Both of those coaches were amazing. Worked with them my whole life until I went to college. And they coached in a way that was very, very tough. You work very, very hard, but you have fun while doing it. And I really enjoyed going to practice every single day and working with them. And I really loved every second of it. So there was absolutely no negatives to it. It's been an amazing experience.
And having that coach that you like to play for is very important because that helps you not only grow the love of the game, but grow bond in what you're hearing and gaining a trust of someone to help you get better.
You go through so many highs and lows, especially if you have them over the long period of time. You develop an incredible relationship. I still talk to Lance and Heath every week, sometimes every day of every week. Before all of my matches, I talk to them. Afterwards, I talk to them. And it's really a friendship for life. You're putting your heart and soul on the line when you're playing, and they're doing the exact same for you. They make such an unbelievable sacrifice to coach, and they're really giving you everything they have. And that doesn't occur very often in life where someone's giving you absolutely everything to help you. And that creates a special relationship for sure. That's lifelong.
In terms of the relationship, what's been the best piece of life advice that they've given you?
Lance always has a saying, tennis is about adversity and recovery. You're going to face adversity, it's inevitable, and then how quick can you recover? And I think that holds true in life to a very large degree. I mean, you're going to have some tough moments. Things aren't going to go your way. And what tennis has taught me the most, and it's given me the biggest lesson, is you have to pick yourself up. You have to get right up and you got to keep working. The only way to get through it is to keep working and keep going to work and doing your absolute best. And it's been amazing to see, like, hey, you can get out of certain tough stretches. You can get back from tough moments. And it gives you the confidence that whatever you face in life, you know you have the ability to get through it and to get on the other side.
Since we just kind of touched on this a little bit, how important is the mental side of things for any athlete?
That's paramount. Once you develop a certain baseline of skills, at a certain point, everybody can play. Everybody has the shots. It's really the mental game that separates it. A lot of people like to talk about the mental strength or the mental toughness that you need during matches, but really it's the mental ability when you're 17 years old and your friends might be out at dinner or out at a party and you got to wake up at 6:30 a.m. the next day and go to work for 5 hours. It's the mental strength, understanding that on the days are tough, you still got to go to work. And that creates a very tough person that outside of sports might not have the same access to creating this type of mindset. Every athlete, but tennis players in specific, I have such an unbelievable respect for the other players because you know what it takes. And it creates a very consistent type of worker, right? A tennis player is somebody who has put in an incredible amount of hours every single day for an incredible amount of years. And this creates a type of person who's willing to work and compete in a way that others might not have been able to develop.
With putting in all that time, do you ever think about anything maybe that you might have missed that some of your friends got to experience?
Of course, those are natural thoughts. I think everybody has them, but you get a moment or a certain time where it's like, wow, like everything's worth it. I remember I was going through a tough stretch my senior year of high school. I was traveling a ton, playing tournaments. I think that time is when most of your friends are maybe doing trips together after high school graduation, hanging out together, doing a lot of things, making a lot of amazing memories in their own right before they go off to college. And I was having a really tough stretch. And I remember I was getting progressively better. It was Kalamazoo. This was kind of like my high school graduation in my own right, if that makes sense. But it was my last junior tournament. It was Kalamazoo. I played a decent first two, 3 rounds. I was playing okay. I was still struggling, but playing better every match. And then I was playing fourth rounds. I think it was against Alex Mickelson, who's doing extremely well on the Pro Tour. And we were on court 5 at Stowe Stadium, so center stage. And it was an absolute battle, one of the most memorable matches I've ever played. And it was 7-5, 5-7, 7-5. I came out in the end and I served for the match at 5-4 in the second set, lost it, was down 2-0 in the third, might have been down a break later in the third, but won that match 7-5 in the third. And I remember just the incredible feeling of I was having such a tough stretch. I kept working, I got through it. The emotions that you experience in tennis are so amazing and so unique. That's something I'll miss tremendously when I'm done. But that 3-second rush that I felt after hitting an ace out wide at 40-15 on match point is something that you realize in the moment, like this is something that can't be experienced outside of this. And it's so unique, and everything that you go through and you miss out is worth it just for that type of moment. And I remember I was playing next to Ben Shelton, who's doing amazing on the tour right now, but he's a lifelong friend of mine, and Bruno as well. He won the Australian Open Juniors, and they were playing right next to me, and it was an amazing moment. You're used to traveling together with all these people, playing the same tournaments. It was one of the last times we were all together, competing our hearts out right next to each other at the same tournament. So that's kind of why I say it was like my high school graduation, but that was an amazing moment for sure, where all the sacrifice and everything comes together and it's all worth it.
Did you ever get a chance to take down Ben Shelton in juniors?
Yeah, we went back and forth back in the day for sure. We used to play doubles a lot, but our record's pretty even.
Is there a favorite memory that you have playing either against him or with him?
Both of our first ever national tournament clay courts in the 12s, we played doubles together. I think it went horribly. We lost first round to a lower ranked team or something in the third set tiebreaker, but I think we were way too confident, too Florida dudes showing up. We thought we were going to win it and got humbled really, really fast, but it was fun looking back, playing with him. My first national tournament, 2 big personalities. We had fun on the court. That's all that matters at the end of the day.
What was the recruiting process like for you? Because Duke, while known for its great athletics, is also an incredibly difficult academic school.
I knew I wanted to go somewhere that had a strong reputation for academics and would challenge me in that regard. Obviously, there's many schools that fit that box, and I was pretty open. I was looking at most places, most of the top tennis programs combined with solid academics. And obviously, there's such a strong history of Notre Dame in the family. My parents both went there. My aunt and uncle went there. My cousins, Sydney and Ryan. My grandfather's been a supporter of Notre Dame since my parents went there, and he's going up to football games every weekend during the season. He has an honorary degree from there. So I was considering that place very, very heavily. Also, I've been coming to Duke. I've been coming to basketball games since before I can walk. I knew I loved Duke. I had so much exposure to Notre Dame, but not really the same for Duke, even though I've been coming for so many years. We would fly in and then go right to the game and then fly out right afterwards. So I didn't really get to experience Duke as a student like I had my entire life at Notre Dame. So on my official visit, I just got like 3-4 days where I saw the other side of Duke and I just fell in love with it immediately. Right after my visit, the day afterwards, I was like, this is where I want to go 100%. It took a little while to make that decision, but I knew in my heart, this is where I wanted to be right when I took that official visit. And it's been the best decision I've ever made.
What's it like to be a member of the Cameron Crazies?
I think I've been a member my entire life. I've loved Duke basketball, and I've been cheering for Duke basketball since I could crawl. So I guess I don't know what it's like not to be a Cameron Crazy, but it's definitely incredible to have the ability to just on a Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. just say, hey, I'm going to a Duke basketball game. That's something that is pretty crazy. I mean, people fly across the world to come see games here. It's on their bucket list. And you're like going 2-3 times a week. Just let me leave the dorm or the apartment and go over to watch this Duke game. And you see incredible talent and the atmosphere is always amazing. So it's definitely a luxury that I have right now as a Duke student. I mean, I've really been able to enjoy it my entire life because of my grandfather, but it's a luxury right now that I've been able to have that definitely I will miss when I graduate.
Believe it or not, I've never actually been to a game at Cameron. I would really like to, though.
It's so unique. The gym is very, very small and the fans are so passionate and it makes such a unique atmosphere just because of the size of the gym. It's hard to describe unless you've been there or you've experienced it, but the place is shaking. It's such an intimate atmosphere. You're so close to the game and the stadium hasn't changed at all. It's timeless. So it's incredible. I remember last year we were playing number one ranked at the time, Arizona. It was an amazing game. We lost by one basket at the end, 2 or 3 points, and that place was shaking. That had to be one of the most memorable games I've been to in my life, just because you forget when you're young, excluding, I remember being at the national championship when Duke played Butler and Hayward with the final half-court shot that went in and out. But in terms of games at Duke, that had to be one of the most memorable for sure. You're also there with your buddies, which is something that I've never been able to do before being here. I was always going to the game with dad, mom, grandparents. It's different grabbing 4 of your college buddies and heading over to Cameron. That's something really, really special.
I had Drew Barry on, who played at Georgia Tech. His dad is the legendary basketball player Rick Barry. And Drew had a monster dunk in Cameron, and the fans just went nuts.
I'm interested. What did he say? What was that like, that feeling?
He said after the dunk that they started chanting, Barry, Barry, and started just bowing at him out of a sign of respect. He said that's something that he would never forget.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You mentioned your grandfather a little bit throughout the show. Away from sport, what's a favorite memory you have with him?
I think away from sports, something as simple as getting to go to dinner with him, getting to spend so much time with him, because obviously he's had very, very difficult last several years. He's battled cancer numerous times. He's in another battle right now as we speak. So anytime I get to be with him, I try to go to dinner with him every single day when I'm home. And I've just been really appreciative with those moments because it's been tough for him the last several years. And it's been amazing to see just how big of a fighter he is, and every single time how he embraces the adversity with such a positive attitude and a readiness to go to battle to beat it. So being around him the last couple of years has definitely been different than anything before, and being able to see just truly how tough and resilient he is in this wake of life is something that I take as inspiration every day.
I am certainly no stranger to cancer with my own family members. So, how has his fight and positive attitude influenced you to help you maybe get through something that's very difficult?
Anytime I'm facing a challenge, I just think this guy's battled and beat life-threatening situations. Health is obviously number one importance in life, and he's faced things on such a larger level recently that it just puts things into perspective, and seeing him get through it and embrace it with a positive attitude every single day, it serves as inspiration as, hey, why can't I do the same? So that's really where it's hit me the most.
For you as a singles player at Duke, what is your biggest win?
I think there's probably 2 components to that. You have maybe ranking wise or player wise, but also I think you have to consider the moment, the match. There's more to it than just who you're playing, but I'm going to say probably beating Carl Poling when we were playing North Carolina to clinch that match. It was my sophomore year. We were ranked close to the top 10, maybe just outside 11, 12, 13. They were right around us, 12, 13, 14, whatever. And we were up 3-2 at the time in the total score. The facility, you have 3 courts on one side and then 3 courts on the other side. So you can't see what's going on the other side, depending on what side you're playing on. my buddy Dale, I caught the score. He might have been down in the third set. So in my mind, I was like, okay, this could be 3-all, come down to me. But I was down a break in the third set. I was down 4-2, and I came back and won that 6-4 to give us the win and give us the clinch. And I think we broke into the top 10 the next week. And that was just huge. Big match for us. Obviously, it's against Carolina. And that at the time, we broke the record that year for most ACC wins in Duke men's tennis history. We only lost to Virginia. So that was a special year, and that was a special match from it too. I mean, there's others as well, but I mean, obviously North Carolina, and just given where both of us were during the season and ranking wise and stuff like that, it was big moving forward for the rest of the year, getting that win. And my match, I clinched it in a pretty epic fashion.
For you, once you're done at Duke, do you see yourself playing on the ATP tour?
No, I decided just recently I'm not going to pursue professional tennis, so I'm trying to break into finance.
So you're majoring in business, in other words?
No, I do political science.
What created your interest in political science?
Well, I just think it's a lot of really, really relevant information that you're learning. Also, the classes are pretty fun. They're usually very, very engaging, unlike maybe some of the other subjects where you just have 3 exams over the course of a year. Most of the classes, you're writing interesting papers, a lot of discussion-based classes. So you really get to hear the other students and their opinions and go back and forth. And I just found the structure of the class and the different types of ways that you learn in those classes. I just really felt it was very, very engaging. And also I enjoyed the variety of it. Like I said, you're not just going into a class with a big lecture and you sit and you have 3 exams over the course of the semester. So it excites me to go to class every day and be in those environments.
With the political debates that have been going on, have you been watching those?
Yeah, I've been tuning into it, obviously. I'm going to give no comment there, but I've been tuning in.
Now that you're back in the class, is that something that you might be talking about?
It's something that will definitely come up. I think Duke does an incredible job, and the professors do as well, of making it an environment where all opinions are able to be shared, but in a respectful manner where they make it a safe space where the students really feel encouraged to share their opinions. And when you leave the classroom, nobody's being judged or held in a certain regard because of the way they think or what they shared. And that makes it a really fun environment where you can go back and forth and you can listen to what so many of these incredibly talented and smart people have to share and what they think about certain issues. And that's all credit to Duke and the professors and the environment that they create.
Wouldn't it be nice if social media were the same way as well?
Yeah, of course. I think there's also some truth to the fact that whatever you put on social media and the internet is there forever. In these classrooms, you speak and then you leave, and there's nothing permanent that people can hold against you. But that's just the nature of social media. And obviously, people engage differently online. When you're face to face with somebody, there's a much greater mutual respect for that other person, and people behave so differently. So that's also, I think, where the biggest difference comes into play.
With professional tennis not being a part of your future, I imagine you'll always still keep playing recreationally. But where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Without tennis, surely there's a lot more unpredictability. And I think that's exciting, to be honest. I mean, in 10 years, I really don't know where I'm going to be, where I'm going to be living, don't know what I'm going to be doing, obviously, maybe in finance, but people change. After 5 years, a lot of people pivot. So I think that excites me to think about in 10 years, who knows what the world's going to like. Whereas in tennis, there's been so much structure and there's been so much linear progression. You know what's happening next year. You know what's happening the year after that. You know what tournaments you're going to play. You know where you're going to be traveling to. And for the first time, it's not like that. And that excites me tremendously.
I know you have to go here in a minute, but make sure to tell your brother when he comes on, no pressure, but he's got to live up to you.
He's a talker as well, and he loves to share stories and moments as well. So I'm sure he will do just fine.
Connor, I want to thank you so much for joining the I Play 2 podcast today and talking about meeting Roger Federer, your time at Duke, both on and off the court, your close relationship with your family and your grandfather. Thank you so much. Continued success this year and whatever life takes you after you graduate from Duke. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.